to another exciting episode of A Gamer's Guide to Productivity. I'm your host, Nico Penguin, and today we have a truly extraordinary individual, a guest joining us for the interview series number 46. Our guest today is Brent Miller, a martial arts expert, published author, and accomplished engineer. Brent has been writing since the age of 13, published his first book at 16, and now he has 10 books available on Amazon. And beyond hitting all of these literary achievements, he's also a black belt in Tang Sung Do or Do. He's going to correct me later. and an engineering project manager. His unique blend of technical knowledge and creative storytelling brings a fascinating perspective to our conversation. So, guys, make sure to get ready to dive into the world of martial arts, writing, and engineering with Brent Miller. And if you truly value this, make sure to drop a like, comment, and a subscribe. And if you want ad free listening, make sure to subscribe on Spotify and Apple. Without further ado, thank you so much, Brent, for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And for those that may not know, what led you to want to write at such a young age? Because most kids are playing Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and you were just like, you know what? I got some ideas, man.
Yeah, so no, I have two answers. One of them is the more political one, but they're both true, right? So when I was a kid, I played video games just like everybody else, but I was more into the story of it, right?
Hmm.
Um, I was also a big reader, but just getting absorbing media in every way I could,
Hmm.
and so I kind of just started telling my own stories, right? But the when I finally decided to sit down and write a book was out of spite. My teacher in middle school told me, "You, no one has ever written a good book without making an outline," and I thought that was ridiculous. So I wrote a book, and I dropped it on her desk, and I was like, "Yeah, I didn't write an outline." And
Wow.
yeah, it was purely out of spite,
Wow.
and that through that I realized how I'm so grateful that she said that because it unlocked this um, the biggest passion that I have now, and it all started from such a silly experience. But
I would even say that it's silly. If we translate that to video game speak, that's almost like, Ash Ketchum hearing, Professor Oak talking about, oh man, I'm stuck in the office all day and I want to go and get an index full of different Pokemon. Like if only I had the free time and ability and willingness and youth to be able to go explore the world and capture as much information, and Ash just happens to be right there. And it's like, I could do that. Like,
right.
you mean an outline is the difference maker between an author and somebody who just writes? Nah, I could do that. Watch me. Now, hearing that, how has your process evolved over the years? Because I'm assuming you don't get a new teacher constantly challenging you every time you drop 10 books.
Yeah, no. So over the years, I tell people at this point I don't write because I want to. I write because I have to. Um,
Mm.
the stories are just screaming at me all the time, you know. So I write them down so they're not in my head anymore. So really, it's kind of just me driving at that point. A little bit of an obsession, but I've gone through various like I will admit that I still don't outline, but I have timelines. I have like pages of timelines for my newest series because you got to keep things in order, and that's an outline in a sense. So I've adopted a little bit of that mentality, but yeah, it's really interesting to me looking back at my first first book, and tying into productivity, right? Um, the first book I wrote wasn't great. I I
Mm.
didn't publish it. I didn't, you know. Um, second one a little bit better, right? And as it really just comes down to do it, and
Mm.
so my process has gotten better. My content, my prose, just everything has evolved over time because the more you do something, the better you get at it, right?
Very true. And so, would you say that because your process evolved into you're essentially combining all the things that you've been learning,
Yeah.
that is effective, like not necessarily an outline, but having some sort of a timeline, so that way, things don't get really mixed up, and then your readers are like, "Hey, what's going on? Like this is supposed to happen in X, Y, and Z." Now, I did want to ask, as
Yeah.
part of your process and something that you mentioned, I wanted to tap into, like, you mentioned that there um well, I want to know, like, because you have all these stories screaming at you in your brain, do you have multiple stories, or do you have like this one long expansive story that just like won't shut up, and like you just gotta get it out there, or like how is that constant noise inside essentially?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I do have multiple series, but I also the newest one I wrote. My brother, I told him 7 years ago. I'm like, this is just going to be one book, right? And then
Mm.
like a year later, I'm like, no, I think I'm going to do a trilogy, but no more. Now it's five, and it's just because there's just always more stories to tell in the world, right?
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and then my other series, I knew that one was going to be big, but I kind of I kind of took a DLC approach to that one. I have the main books and then little novellas that I would drop every couple months instead of making you wait a whole year for the next book, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's because I just love all these characters so much that even when I think their story is done, there's always something more. Um, yeah.
So when you go through your writing process and you have, let's say, a novella that you're dropping in the middle of a series writing, how do you tap into that specific writing that you're doing at that moment? Like, do you have like a specific process, like, waking up super early, or like after a long day's work, or whatever, that differentiates from your normal writing your series book versus that one spin-off, like, what, I'm just going to write 2 weekends,
Yeah.
how do you do that?
um, so I don't have the best like process because I have ADHD and
I was gonna hear a
it,
sporadic answer. I was like,
yeah,
I know I'm gonna hear a sporadic answer. Okay.
yeah, it pretty much is like I do try to write one chapter a week, but like
Mm.
this past week I wrote like 5 chapters, just locked myself in my room for 8 hours on end, and it's you know my family wonders where I went. But I'm the same way with everything I do, like video games, right? I will not play a single game for a month, and then Final Fantasy 16 comes out, and I beat it in 2 days, right? It's I
Yo.
just everything that I do 100%. But
Right, right.
yeah,
And so explain to us how you were able to essentially cheat code your way into martial arts. Like, was that a similar process that you were like, I want to be the very best that no one ever was?
yeah, no. Martial arts was a unique journey. I was like growing up, I was chubby and a lot of times felt powerless, which ironically kind of fueled one of my books. That it's called Powerless. But
Mm.
but it was really in college. A couple of my friends were doing it, and I was like, you know what? I want to be able to defend myself. So I just started learning it, and I fell in love. Like stuck with Tung Sudo for years, and then our club that like we had a club in the college, so our club disbanded during COVID,
Hmm.
and after COVID, I found it's called Shotokan Karate is kind of the parent style, but it's my teacher's like unique style. So I've
Right.
been training with him for a while now. I'm a brown belt in karate and a black belt in Tung Sudo.
Yeesh.
But yeah, I mean it martial arts unfortunately doesn't have cheat codes. It's just a lot of hard work and um, dedication, to throw in the same kick 200 times and all of a sudden you do it a little better. But yeah, it's been really helpful for confidence, self-esteem, discipline, right? All of the things that you think martial arts is good for, but also my fight scenes are, I like to think, pretty good because they're all, like, a lot of them come from my own experience in sparring and things like that. So
Right, right.
yeah.
Do you ever feel like when you're sparring and it's getting heated up and you're in like one of those situations where it's like I'm facing somebody that's at a similar skill level. And so like if I try to be aggressive and I mess up, I'm going to get countered and it's going to hurt and
Yeah.
I'm going to see it happen but I can't versus do I shell up and then just be a punching bag and then hope that I see a mistake and let them get some like how do you
Yeah.
in that moment when there's pressure how do you take action.
So my martial arts kind of developed based on my previous teacher, who was very good at counterattacks. So I kind of
Mm.
started matching that. So in general, I adopt this kind of observe and react um, mindset. So it you know it's just parry attack, right? That's kind of my flow. But then in this new school, people are a lot more aggressive, and you can only parry so many attacks if they're throwing a bunch of them at you. So
Right.
I've had to, like, learn to be aggressive myself and to come in with attacks more, which is pretty cool for my writing, because now I have characters who fight in two completely different ways, and you can kind of see that through them too. So it's pretty cool.
All right, I have such a nerd question now that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So how does it feel when or have you ever had a moment when you're in the zone, like in martial arts, you're in there, you're not thinking about your writing material, and then just like half a second, you're just like, yo, I can see this fight scene just happening like way better now.
Yeah, it's great because when I was not, not to sound too braggy here, but when I was in Tang Soo Do, I was the most senior student. So I
Mm.
had the most experience out of all of my peers. And when I would spar with them, it was very one sided,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I would I would be half in the fight mentally and then halfway thinking about, like, oh yeah, what if I do this, and like testing different things that I want the characters to try. Um, yeah, sometimes it resulted in me getting punched in the face, but
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes I get yeah,
yeah,
right back into reality.
right.
Oh man, no, okay. So you have a lot of activities now. The meat and bones of what I would assume pays the bills. How did you, with so much creativity, so much energy, become an engineering project manager? Because that sounds like something that has a lot of calculus, a lot of complicated terminologies, a lot of numbers, and most authors and creatives that I know run away from numbers. So how are you in the flames?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually, I mean, I've just been blessed with a lot of great opportunities. With engineering, I've always been good at math. I've always just loved it. I actually tutored calculus for a few years in college.
Gee,
Um,
big flex.
um, I tutored physics too, but I wasn't as good at that one.
Oh, I
But
love physics, but I always found it like the cubed version of calculus. So I was
yeah,
like,
it
science
was,
and math? Nah, no,
you're
thank you.
combining the two. It was,
No, thank you.
like, I did fine when I was in the class, but then people asked me to teach it to them, and I'm like, I don't, I
Wow.
don't understand this anymore. I've forgotten everything. Um,
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
but yeah, like, so engineering, I honestly, I picked a career path because I knew I wanted a wife and kids, right? And so I picked a career path that would be financially stable, and hoped that one day the books would take over that role.
Mm.
Um, so that's how I got into engineering. And the way I got into project management was just I had a great boss. My first real job as an engineer, he asked me to do some modeling, and I'm terrible at modeling. And really quickly, he realized that. um, and so instead of like trying to catch me up in this remedial modeling course or whatever, he's like, okay, let's pivot and let's find what you're good at. And so I'm good at organization, right? Because I have to be with the ADHD, otherwise I lose everything.
Hmm.
I'm good at organization, timelines, budgets. So he helped me get into project management, and that's what I do now. Yeah.
So, is project management, for those that may not know, just to make an easy comparison, is that essentially like when you have a book, you have a deadline, you have this that you have to deliver at this specific time within these parameters, and you're looking for X amount on an output. So would you say almost like you're literally built for that because you've been doing that? Like, hey, I'm gonna drop a book on this date. Let me finish the book. Let me give it to an editor. Let me clean it up, and then we can
Yeah.
publish it. And now you're just doing that at another level for a specific company.
Yeah, and I mean, so the timeline perspective exactly, but there's also the budget. With books too, I have marketing, and I have to figure out what um, the cover art is going to cost and things. So I have a budget and I have a timeline, and that's really all I do is maintain those professionally now. So
And so, since you do so much, how do you juggle all of these different activities? Being a serious individual, because engineering is serious work, and then creative, letting your creativity flow, and then being disciplined and focused in the moment, so you don't get your head chopped off. uh, so, how do you stay um, with such an efficient time management schedule?
so honestly, for me, it's reward systems. I found that I was watching a streamer, um, and I wish that I could, plug him. He's a great guy. I think his name's Thor. Um, but he was talking about ADHD.
Mhm.
And basically, what I've found is if you have ADHD, you often think, okay, I can't focus, right? But for some reason you can focus on a video game for 25 hours straight and forget you have to eat and sleep, right?
Right.
So what the video game is giving you is constant feedback and constant rewards. So for me to stay disciplined, I need to give myself that constant feedback. So I have a to-do list, and on my to-do list I put stupid stuff on there, right? Wake up, get out of bed, brush my teeth, drink some water, whatever it is, because then I have 20 items left to do, and I get to mark one off, and that feels pretty good, right?
Right.
So that's how I stay disciplined. Is just here's my list, and um, I get this little good feeling every time I click a checkbox. Um, I don't know if it's a helpful thing for everyone, but that's my uh, whatever the word I'm looking for is.
The way that you make your process of time management. So, would you say that you have a good gauge for how your time moves in terms of your activities? Because, for example, some people they may say like, you know what, I'm gonna give myself an hour to either meditate or go shopping, or just I'm gonna give myself 30 minutes to look at social media, and then lo and behold, like 3 hours are gone. Poof. Do you ever find yourself in that, or how do you prevent those kind of things from happening? Because you have a full schedule.
Yeah, no, I mean those things can happen for sure. That I If I really need to, I'll set timers, but
Okay.
usually I'll just like let it happen. If I'm like I'm gonna write for an hour, and then an hour goes by, but I'm in the zone, I'll just keep writing, and you know, then I kind of do a lot of damage control of like, okay, I went over here. What on my list can I move to tomorrow? Right.
Right.
Um, again, I don't know if it's the healthiest way, but it's uh,
It
it's
works for
how I
me.
get by. Yeah.
It works for me. Oh man, no, that is I do the same thing
Yeah.
because there's only so much that you can do. And one of my mentors was saying, like, if you do something at half energy with half focus, then there's really no reason for you to be doing that, because then it's going to be subpar. Then you're going to have to spend time and maybe even money and effort in fixing it, like doing a cover art, because you're feeling super inspired, but it's already like 2 a.m. You just finished writing for a while and you're just so inspired, like, I know what it looks like, I know this and that, and you're trying to find somebody that can do that for you, but you just burn through time, energy, resources, and you don't have the clearest of minds. So I wanted to also ask, because you do so much and there's so much going on, how do you also find um, new inspirations for work? Because if you do a lot of things on a repeated basis, how does your mind just continuously produce much more new innovations?
Yeah. So that's where, for me, video games are a big part of my life, right? And um, like inspiration is everywhere. Everybody says that, and it's true.
Hmm.
But for me specifically, a lot of people focus so much as authors on reading, right? Stephen King has a quote that I vehemently disagree with, but he says, if you don't have the time to read, you don't have the time or the tools to write. And
Mm.
a lot of people cling to that, right?
Hmm.
But I can't stand it because,
Break it down. Break it down.
yeah, here we go. So, because the thing is, what we need to be doing in anything that we do, right? For me, it's writing, but if it's game design, if it's your job, whatever it is,
Right.
we have to practice our craft. That's what makes us better,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
My craft isn't reading, um, and it's not writing, it's storytelling. And
Hmm.
so for me, I get my stories from TV sometimes, less frequently recently, um, manga, which is technically reading, and video games,
Well,
right?
if we count mangas, I've read hundreds of
That's
thousands.
what I'm
I,
saying.
I don't count them. I don't count them.
I have a whole row. That's my hero right back there.
Yeesh.
I
True
got the
fan.
yeah, I got the original Japanese.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, I mean, that's we're practicing our craft, and for me,
Correct.
I practice my craft by taking in stories. And now, I can go on a whole rant about it is important to study vocabulary and see how other authors do things. So I understand the value of reading. I'm not trying to diminish that.
Right.
I just don't like telling like a whole group of people, this is how you have to do something.
Right.
Doesn't really make sense. Feels kind of gatekeepy. Um,
Now, no, wait,
yeah,
before you say that, because not only is it gatekeeping, it's also hindering somebody who has a completely different way of working.
yeah, right, yeah, and it's hindering, because like you told me before we got started, right? If I were to talk to younger me and try to teach him how to be productive, younger me, 16-year-old me, hearing that advice, hearing
Hmm.
if you don't read, you can't write, would be so disheartened, right?
Mm,
But it's not true for everyone. It's
that's
true
so
for some
true.
people, but we have to find our own way, right? Um, and for me, that way is sorry, I talk circles, but
Go ahead.
inspiration, right? I mean, Final Fantasy 16 and 15 really, two of the biggest sources of inspiration for me in a long
Mm,
time, and they're video games, but that doesn't make them less valuable, right?
right. How would you in that situation, like when somebody is giving you that negative feedback or that criticism in terms of like, I don't either like your material that you're writing, or I didn't like this plot twist that you made, I didn't like that you killed this character, or that you made these individuals obsolete. How do you handle that when it comes to your writing? And then when it comes to, you having to dish that out when you're the instructor, whether you're like at the martial arts dojo or when you were, teaching physics. How do you dish out your criticism?
Yeah, criticism's hard in general. What I try to do, and I mean, especially when it's something that you love, it's hard to take it rationally, right? So I think it's important to give yourself time to emotionally like react within yourself, right? Not
Hmm.
to blow up, but then to address it, right? So if somebody gives me feedback of about my book that is useful, then I might edit if I'm in that phase, right? Like
Hmm.
right now I'm in the editing phase. So if you give me something that's like, oh, this character's reaction doesn't make sense, cool, thank you. I can now process, right? Because I make mistakes too. Um, so I think it's important to evaluate whether it's something that would improve the overall story, or if somebody's upset because their favorite character died, but genuinely that was the move that needed to happen for the story, right? Because it's like I cried writing that scene too. I wasn't happy about it, right?
Right.
But it was what the story needed. But for me, it's just about having the open mind to accept that criticism, and maybe the next book, maybe this book, whatever it is, gets better because of it, and maybe I just disagree, and that's okay too, right? Um, when I give criticism, I'm bad at it, honestly. I try, usually if I'm teaching, I try to get them to figure it out themselves, right? So
Mm.
my tutoring method was, people hated me for it, but they learned, was oh, okay, so this should be the first step, right? Like they would ask me, and I'm like, I don't know, do the problem, let's see. And then they spend 20 minutes and it's wrong, and they're like, where did I go wrong? Oh, it was the first step, but it gives them this chance to work it through themselves, and then they figure out what's wrong, and I help guide them to the right answer, rather than me just saying, no, that's not how you do it, right? um, that's usually how I try to approach it, is show them the why. I think that's
Mm.
the most important thing.
Ironically, that tied into one of the questions that so it's just how you are with creativity in terms of book. That's how I am in terms of conversation and communication. One
Sure.
thing just spurs on so much of a multitude. So why? So great ending, because that makes me think, what are the whys that make you get up to write when you don't have to do Tangsen Do if you don't have to you don't have to be an engineer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice, it's nice. Same as it's amazing to let off your thoughts and have a place where it actually can come into life, or to go into a place where not only can you be disciplined, but you can let off some steam and you can actually feel how you'd be in a fair fight. So how?
Yeah. So I have, for those three things, three very different answers. And I inherited from my mom the genetics of I cry very easily, so I'm going to try not to. Um, no, but for writing, that one's easy for me. That's
Mm.
my passion, that's my dream. But another quote, this is one that I do very much agree with. Neil Gaiman, um, you can look the full story up on Goodreads because I'm going to butcher it, but essentially he tells the story about one of his great cousins, I think, who lived during World War II, and um, basically they were trading books even though it was contraband, and
Mm.
he says that he always felt like a fraud for being a writer, because that doesn't matter, right? Like, who cares about writing? You could be doing something important. And he ends the quote with, writing is not a luxury, or no, sharing stories is not a luxury. It's one of the things that we live or die for. And that has moved me. Like, that's how I keep going, right? Because right now I'm at a phase in my career where not too many people know my name, not too many people read my books. But there was at the last Comic Con I went to, somebody came up and gave me a friendship bracelet that she made based on one of the characters in my book, and that that's how I keep going. If I
Yay!
right, if I
That's
change one
fire.
person's life just a little
Right.
bit, um, martial arts is the family that
Mm,
I've grown to love there, and we all just support each other and grow together. So even on the days where I don't want to get up and go practice and do something physical, seeing them and working with them is a big deal, and it's kind of my responsibility now that I'm more of a senior student, right? So I
right.
have to be there.
Yep.
Um, and then my job, like sometimes I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I want to tell you the answer is money. We need something to pay the bills, but really, I work in cancer diagnostics, so
Mm.
the projects that I work on save people's lives, and I, I don't.
Hey,
Thank
that's
you.
really productive as a gamer. Yo, that's really my fault. My fault.
No, no, yeah. I think that I think it's important to find our whys, right?
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
Man,
look at
because
that.
the
I didn't
reason
quit.
no, no, I was gonna say it's June Men's Mental Health Month, so
There we go.
there's no judgment around here. We all gamers. We've all heard horrendous things in game lobbies and
Oh my
whatnot. And
gosh.
if we can survive through that and not break a tear, then when we watch a movie or something, or when we're just chatting with the homies, it's okay to let it flow. Um, no, but I did want to ask about the whys because I think it's so important that a lot of people don't recognize that everybody is really normal. Certain people just have a constant reminder as to what is the driving force. What is your absolute driving force that makes you get up either early or go to sleep late or put in extra hours on something that you're not really seeing a return on the investment in terms of how much effort, energy, how much you're sacrificing other activities when you could be doing, you could be doing overtime, but you're like, you know what? I got a deadline to meet, or those students, they're waiting for me. Somebody that just learned how to do their front kick or whatever, that they need me to be there so that I just look at them and they know, oh yeah, I gotta put my arm this way or I gotta twist my hip that way. And it's so important and impactful. And I wanted to ask, how do you feel when you do activities and you're not getting an ROI, whether money or how you're getting, an ROI? You're just like, you know what, I'm gonna give back because that's what you're doing. You're not if you're not getting paid a substantial amount, you're taking your time, energy that you could be doing actual money stuff, and you're giving back to the people that you really care about, your fans and your martial arts family.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really what it is. Is um, finding like not everything can be about the ROI, right? Like you're saying, like there's gotta be something else because, um, especially as an author, like your ROI is bad for a long time.
Most, if not all, will never make it.
Right. Yeah. But it's finding that one person who, um, and I remember the every single one, and I hope that the day never comes where I start to forget, because
Mm,
I don't want to take for granted the fans, because they're the people who, like, when the day comes that I am a full-time author,
mhm,
it's not thanks to my efforts, it's thanks to all of them, right?
right.
But I remember every interaction I have where somebody comes up to me and says, like, "Oh, I've already read your books. I got them all on Kindle." And I'm like, "Really? I've never met this person before, but I have had an impact on their life." Right. Um, and yeah, I think it's just really, for me, like clinging to those moments, clinging to watching the kid who couldn't get his front kick finally nail it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and clinging to the little victories or the big ones kind of keeps you moving, you know?
And for those that may want to support you, that may want to follow you, that hear everything that you're about, let them know where they can go to support you, follow you, um, you know, because they might really care about providing that kind of support to support
Yeah.
that dream of being a full-time author.
Yeah. So honestly, my socials are my social games week right now. I do have my website, brentmillerbooks.com, and my Facebook page is really where I'm active. So that's facebook.com/brentmillerbooks. And I have an email list. That's really where I communicate with people. So
Mm.
if anybody is interested in getting updates, it's I send out updates where I pretty much just talk as openly as I am with you to people, and there's always these heartfelt messages that I get a little embarrassed about, but people have told me that they're nice. Um, so yeah, there's that, but I think really the Facebook is um, where I'm trying to be more active.
Okay, you guys, you heard it from him.
Yeah.
That's where he's most active. If you want to reach him, go there. So we're gonna go into some fun conversations. We're in the overtime. So Wisp confirmed, what you said essentially. Breaking down stories from games helps learn how to tell stories. Reading isn't the only way; it's just one. So essentially, agreeing with what you said, that it would suck, younger version hearing like, if you're not reading, you can't write, or vice versa. Just incorrect information. Everybody is unique. And speaking about uniqueness, this is one of my favorite parts of this show. Your top 5 video games of all time, sir.
Okay. I have thought about this a lot, and it's really hard. Final Fantasy 1 and
Ooh,
15, I think
okay.
both make it. Um,
Oh.
Other than that, probably Ocarina of Time. Um, why am I blanking right now? Because I know I'm gonna regret anything that I tell you at this point. Oh, Terraria, obviously. Um, and I might just have to pick like Dead Rising. I'm not sure that
Mm.
that's like the like if I took time to really think about it, I don't think that it would. Oh, it wouldn't because I've already replaced it. But it's the nostalgia that gets me. Um, Ratchet and Clank. That one's gotta.
An
That's
honorable
gotta.
mention.
Yeah. So there we go. There's my top five ish. That's what.
Would the list still be the same if I asked the 5 games that you pour the most amount of time in?
No.
What?
So let's see.
Oh, do tell, dude.
Okay,
I want to hear this.
the games I've put the most time in, Terraria and Final Fantasy One definitely stay up there. I've beaten Final Fantasy One like 3 dozen times, just with different team setups and challenge runs
Mhm.
and stuff. Um, but the one that's surprising is Pokemon Fire Red, because I don't love Pokemon games that much
Wait, the second
anymore.
one?
Yeah,
Yo, that one's in my list too.
yeah, but it's so moddable. I have played so many mods of Fire Red, so I've played through that game over and over. Um,
Wait, there's mods? Wait, what?
yeah, well, I mean,
Whoa.
okay,
Wait,
you have,
explain what?
so you have to emulate it, which I
Yeah,
don't
I've done that.
condone.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, but yeah, so I played a Dragon Ball Z team training mod of Fire Red, so it reskins everybody as Dragon Ball characters.
What? You could
Dude,
do
it's
that?
so good. It's so
I
good.
didn't know that. What? That's a real thing?
It's a real thing.
Yo, get out of here.
Yeah, there are
What?
tons, but that's my favorite.
Bruh. What? I didn't even know that was a real thing.
Yep.
Yo, I just liked it for the practicality, and you're telling me you can change like the
Oh,
skins?
you can do so much.
Oh my, bro, you just changed my life right
There's
now. What?
there's one there's one that's like probably way less fun, but it's basically what they do is skin every Pokemon as Charizard, and it's like a derpy Charizard. I don't know. I feel like I'd get bored of it in 5 minutes, but that's kind of funny.
No,
Um,
that sounds exactly what if I would have known that, I would have been done. Oh,
oh yeah.
what?
Oh, have fun delving back into that one.
Oh
There's a
man.
whole world.
Yo, that's crazy. I didn't even know that. I love that game. All right, hold on. I know we're talking about top five, but in
Yes.
that game, how frustrating was it when you made it to the final four and then you beat them and then like Geo just comes out of nowhere and it's like, hey, you're all low HP, you're all low mana and potion and everything is low. All your moves are on zero. Now it's time to fight me, and it's like you lose and you got to start all over, and it's like,
Yeah, the whole
bro,
boss rush again.
like I haven't memorized the moves, like what beats what, how to, and then I gotta fight this dude. Like it took me like
Yeah.
200 hours.
See, that's I come from a rich history of JRPGs, so I just treated it like that, and I came in with a whole team of like nearly max level Pokemon, and it
Mmm.
it didn't matter.
Mmm.
I have no skill in that game. Just to be clear, it is all just sheer overpowered levels. That's how I get by.
No, I understood like the first 3 or 4 times I challenged them, and I went in with like I sped rush. I finished everything as quickly as possible. I was just trying to end the game, and
Yeah,
then boom, now it's like my 5 Pokemon are pretty much just like level 40s and 50s, and I'm trying to just like counter, and like you can't counter everybody. Win against 4 people
right.
and then fight Geo. And I'm like, I gotta level up these Pokemon to like 100 or 90 to just stand a chance. Okay, so we're getting sidetracked. All right, so that was the top 5 video games. So since you're an author, I want to know who are your top 5 authors slash stories in case they are not the same.
Yeah. So Horikoshi is possibly number one. Just the storytelling of My Hero Academia is so magnificent. I don't even have words
Wait, hold on. Are you caught up right now?
with the manga. Yeah.
Okay, I'm like 7 chapters behind. So
Okay.
it gets even better.
I mean, you're racing to the conclusion, but yeah, it's phenomenal, and
Hmm.
I think let's see, without dropping spoilers, right? The 7 chapters, you know what's coming up, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but seeing it play out is perfection.
Hmm. No, yeah, because I definitely that story is it's for me personally, it's like the Japanese manga version of like Marvel. Like
Yeah,
watching heroes like before they were the hero, like what made them take that decision, and then watching the absolute growth of these characters go from like like the archetypes that you see them as, like, oh, this loud, obnoxious bully guy becomes like a soft, lovable guy, or like, the small wimpy kid in the corner that just wants, just like Captain America, he has the will of a lion, but he has the frame of like a skeleton. And like, how is this guy the main character? No, I definitely I see where it's going, and I 100% agree. It's definitely up there. My thing is I wish it could be more because the story is
yes,
so
I
good.
know. I There are times that it feels like he kind of um, I don't want to say rushed things, but there are things that I feel could have used more development. Um,
Hmm.
but I think it's just because poor guy has arthritis, and he's like, he's like, okay, story has to end so that his health can improve.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's project managing against his health.
yeah, it's bad. That's why he has all these extended breaks. Um, but yeah, it it's amazing, and it's something I actually, one of my books is called Powerless, and it's about a character born with no powers in a world where everybody else has them. So it very much has some Deku vibes and some
Yeah,
My Hero. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
got some Deku vibes. It got some Lee Bruce Lee vibes. Yeah.
yeah. So there are some Easter eggs in there that I am
I just
proud
said
to
Bruce Lee,
have.
not Bruce Lee. Lee from Naruto.
Rock Lee, Rock Lee.
Rock Lee, yeah.
I I was rolling with that. I was like, maybe I haven't seen.
No, no, no. I was thinking
Yeah,
of Rock Lee, powerless in a
fair enough.
world for a. Yeah, yeah. That's actually
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah. But
And that's your number fifth.
no, that's one. I started
That's
in
your.
the wrong
Oh, okay, okay,
order.
okay,
Oh
okay, okay.
yeah. No, he's got to be my favorite author of all time.
Man, he's your go. Okay, all right. You guys still give us two, three, four, and
Yeah,
five.
yeah. So two is got to be Nagashima, Final Fantasy
Hmm.
15.
Hmm.
Again, just
Wait, you
uh,
you read it too?
oh no, I mean I just the game, but
Oh,
he's
the
the
storyline
story.
was that good.
Oh yeah, I for me, and it could be that I have found myself in a lot of the characters and stuff, but the parallels and the character growth is phenomenal. Um, and then you see more of it in the DLC and stuff, but there's just all these little things in Final Fantasy 15 that I would like to be able to incorporate into my stories. Like, for
Hmm.
example, all of the characters, it's four men on a road trip together, right? And if there's a woman in the car, they behave a little bit differently. And it's just really interesting how he nailed down this, like, oh, they have to be on their best behavior now, and things like that. Like,
Right.
it's just interesting how they each react a little bit differently to the different people that they talk to, and that level of depth in the characters that they manage to pull off is something that I'm jealous of. It's pretty impressive.
Right.
Um, I've got, like, beyond that, I don't I don't read a ton. Michael Grant was probably top, like, book author when I was younger. Um, I think he did a really good job with his Gone series. It's the one that I read. It's where I know him from. Um, and Neil Gaiman, I have to include on my list, even though embarrassingly I have not read anything he's done. Um, but I do have some books on my shelf that I am working on getting to. Um, but just as a human being, I admire him so much, and like the quote that I gave earlier and stuff, he really is somebody who drives me forward on my own writing. So yeah, I've got to include him, and then probably probably C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia. Um, it's Narnia itself is clearly a children's book, um, but I think that he really wove his theology into the narrative, and he made it, like, oh man, metaphors that children can digest, and I think it's pretty impressive how he told it. So I have his book sitting on my shelf as well, so that when I have kids, I can read it to them. So yeah, that's five. I did it.
No, I really like the last one because that was one that I read the book and watched the movie when I was a kid. So when I first saw it, it was this like this interconnection in between my brain. It was like this interconnection of like how I imagined the characters to be, to speak, to look like, to act like, to portray, like even the small little mannerisms and stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
the goat man, like
yeah,
Pan. When I saw him, I was like, that's exactly how I envisioned him. When
yeah,
he acted, like when he stumbled the first time he saw Lucy, and I was like, yo, that's exactly how I saw it in my head. And then like, my sister, every time I was like, oh my god, that's exactly. She's like, oh my god, you're gonna ruin the movie. Like you, like just yeah, okay, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but in my head, when I'm reading, I'm like, it's this whole world that just like their cousin, like the captain, the guy who goes on the ship or whatever.
Caspian.
Yes, and I was like the Caspian Sea and stuff like that. I was like, yo, this is exactly how I envisioned it, you know.
Yeah,
And then when I was reading your bio that you started writing early, I'm like, that reminds me of the Aragon guy who he
yeah.
wrote very early on too. And I'm like, wow, like you started young, now you have 10 down the chamber and you're working on some more. It doesn't sound like you're gonna stop anytime
Nope.
soon.
I actually
Uh,
just finished writing the most recent one in my next in my series. So we're going through editing and stuff now. So
Oh no,
yeah,
that's pretty cool because now you're gonna go on to 11, and as you mentioned, you just get a little bit better every time.
yeah. I told my fiance and my brother that when I finished this, I was like, I think this is my favorite book that I've ever written. And my brother's like, dude, you say that every time. And I'm like, yeah, because they're all better than the last.
Like, are
Um,
you now? I gotta be the bad guy because now you've reminded me, like, which one of your books would be your favorite?
yeah.
Like
Um,
picking out your children. Which one's the best? Which one's your favorite? Which one pulls at your heartstring? Or when you're proud to say I'm an author, what's the book that you're like, yeah, you got to read this one first before everything else?
well, the thing is, as far as like my released work,
Hmm.
it's Wolfsbane is my favorite, but that's the fourth in the series, the Cursed series, and it
Mm.
kind of has the same. It's this unfair advantage that like okay, my favorite Marvel movie. Okay, No Way Home, that doesn't count. That's perfection. Um, but Endgame was my favorite for the longest time, and it's like, well, of course it is because it had years of build up and all of these threads coming to a close and all of the callbacks they could do,
Hmm.
right? And that's what I have in Wolfsbane. It's like, is it that much better than Cursed? I think so. But
Mm.
the reason is because there are all these callbacks, all of these threads that are being tied up, all these themes that you're finally getting to see come to fruition. So, you know, it has an unfair advantage over the ones that are starting out the story, right?
Okay, so it's the culmination of
Exactly. Yeah.
everything that you've been laying down,
Yeah.
like the ultimate conclusion. Oh, okay, that's the safest and most accurate way
Right.
of depicting that. That's actually pretty interesting. And as we wrap up, I do want to give you another opportunity to leverage what you bring to the table. In case a younger version of yourself was to hear, what you have to say about productivity, about how to either make those dreams come a little sooner or how to determine which path to stick to and pursue. What would you tell a younger version of yourself?
Yeah. So the path to stick to, I would say, is the one that makes you happy, right? I mean, if if you're like everything's a skill and you're going to fail. So don't be afraid of that. Don't try so hard to avoid failure that you don't learn something new, right?
Mm,
If you're dreaming of writing, write and it's going to be terrible, but the next thing you write won't be, right? It'll be
right.
a little better. And find people who will be honest with you, right? Um, and tell you like this is how you can improve in a polite, respectful way. There are plenty of communities on Reddit for authors who want to do that, on Facebook as well. Um, but if your thing is game design, the first game you make is going to be terrible. There are going to be bugs. There, you don't know how to code. Just start. Right? YouTube
Right.
has everything that you need to learn. So that's really what it is. It's just something that makes you passionate is worth figuring out and it's worth learning. Um, yeah. Also, um, right now, and I tell people this at every con that I go to and stuff, like right now, I am at a phase where I can interact with young authors and fans and things like that, right?
Hmm.
So as long as I'm able to, I want to be that person, right? If I get 1,000 emails a day, then I probably can't. But if if somebody's listening and they're like, oh man, I don't know where to start, reach out to me on Facebook or on email, because genuinely, like, communicating with people and helping people is the biggest reason that I do what I do. So if I can give somebody advice, I don't know how good it'll be, but I'm always down to try. So
Well, coming from an ex calculus instructor, that is very reassuring. So, thank you so much, Brent, for providing not even nuggets. It feels like you provided a whole river of knowledge, of true information that I hope young listeners or even somebody that's just tuning in and it's
you
thinking
know,
about. Oh, well, yeah,
oh,
hit me.
sorry, don't mean to interrupt. I'm just, like you say, young listeners. That's important. But the other thing is, Chinese proverb, right? The best time to start was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. I don't care if you're 45. Right? Start writing. Do what you love. Don't let time pass you by. Right.
Fact.
But anyway,
No, no, that's true. That's so true. You know, definitely, for the younger listeners, you heard it. This is the advice that he gives, and I stand by it. You know, you're never too early, and it's never too late. Definitely start the moment that you have that inspiration. Again, Brent, thank you for taking the time out of your
yeah,
busy schedule. Everybody who heard, please, if you've really valued his input, make sure to check out his website. Make sure to support him. Drop a like, comment, subscribe. I really hope that you guys really liked listening to what a true martial artist, an author, an engineer, a true extraordinaire has to explain about. So, if you want to learn more about his work, check out all his books, check out his website, check out his journey. Like, comment, subscribe. Again, check us out on different platforms, Spotify, Apple. As always, please keep gaming, stay productive, and continue to level up in all aspects of your life. And if you're not leveling up, at least put in the work to get a little bit XP at a time. So until next time, this is Nico Penguin signing off. Happy gaming, everyone, and have a productive rest of your day. Good night.